Okay, before we get started, I want to clarify that I understand that Pokemon is owned by the Pokemon Company, and the Pokemon Company consists of Nintendo, Game Freak, and Creatures Inc. However, for the majority of this video, I will be referring to the Pokemon Company as Nintendo, as Nintendo is a part owner of Pokemon, and the systems and applications that I will be discussing today were created by Nintendo. So, it will be much easier to follow this video as long as we call it Nintendo. Okay, on with the video.
Video games. A means that was once simply used to entertain children, or perhaps pass the time on a rainy day, has since transformed into the foundation of countless childhoods, and has become an important part in both tech and human history. Welcome to a moment in gaming history.
It's not a crazy statement to say that Pokemon is lacking the magic that it once had. Each consecutive title dating back to around the Generation 7 or 8 range has had each Pokemon gamer hoping that it would be the title that gets Pokemon back in the right direction. Unfortunately, we are still waiting for that title to be released. This trend has led us into one of the most interesting moments in gaming history. You see, Pokemon isn't the type of franchise to just go quietly into the night after a couple of bad entries.
Pokemon is way beyond that.
Pokemon is the #1 media franchise in the world, spawning video games, trading cards, TV shows, movies, and much, much more. A couple bad games won't have Pokemon fans jump off the bandwagon. However, what Pokemon fans have instead been doing is jumping on
The old bandwagon.
or going back to play the old games, you see. You see, with the failure of the current Pokemon games, many YouTubers, streamers, and gamers alike have fled the modern games and jumped back into the good Pokemon games. This has actually benefited the state of Pokemon, as the best games that exist in the franchise have now been given the spotlight once again, but now shining for a whole new audience. These games have even had new life breathed into them with the creations of ROM hacks, challenge runs, randomizers, and even the rebirth of internet connectivity on the DS and the 3DS, thanks to Wi-Fi and Pretendo respectively. This has even benefited the growth of new Pokemon fans, as the older games are way easier to digest for a new fan to the series, as well as there being less Pokemon for them to memorize. Which, by the way, for the modern games, is now over 1,000.
It's over
One.
9,000! What?
1,000?
So I hear you saying, Brad Pack, it sounds like everything is great. The modern games aren't that good, but everyone is still playing Pokemon. They just happen to prefer the older games. Nintendo should still be happy with people playing their old stuff, right? Right? Wrong! Nintendo hates this. I am hardly the first person to ask the question, why aren't the old Pokemon games on the Nintendo Switch Online service? It feels like, as of this moment, it is one of the most commonly asked questions among the Pokemon community. It seems like it makes too much sense. Everyone is playing the old games right now anyways, which is driving up the prices of these games on secondhand markets. It's now $400 to purchase a used copy of Pokemon Emerald, which, by the way, does not even come in its box. It's just the cartridge, and the battery won't even work, so say goodbye to any time-based events. This is a nightmare for gamers who just want to play the good games and the games that they see all their favorite content creators playing. Nintendo could fix this in a snap by adding those games to the Nintendo Switch Online service. The games would actually be improved upon, as time-based events would work on the Switch, as well as for the first time, online battles and trades would be possible. So then, why not put them on the NSO service? I believe that I have the answer to this question. I believe that Nintendo doesn't want to put these games on the Nintendo Switch Online service because they are terrified what it will do to the current games. Pokemon Scarlet and Violet are already failing and losing to their 20-year-old counterparts with 700 less Pokemon, and the accessibility to the old games is right now at an all-time low. Could you imagine what would happen to Scarlet and Violet if these games were released to the NSO service? For one, the prices of old games would immediately fall, as playing on cartridges would immediately become the non-definitive way to play these games due to competitive battling and online trading being possible in the NSO versions. Let's see what it would do to different types of gamers that Pokemon attracts. I will list a couple of the more popular Pokemon gamer types, and before doing so, I want you all to know that these are not the only types of Pokemon gamers, and a gamer is not forced to stay in one of these categories. I myself fall into just about every one of these categories, but this is just a small list that I came up with, so please don't be offended if your Pokemon gamer type isn't in this list. Number 1, the competitive battler. Competitive battlers could certainly continue playing Pokemon Scarlet and Violet if they choose. However, in the past, they were forced to follow the metagame to the newest release and adapt to its new Pokemon and new gimmicks. NSO would give them the ability to play online tournaments, ranked ladders, and more for generations 1, 2, and 3, all on the newest and current Nintendo system. Not to mention that the Battle Frontier will be waiting for them to challenge themselves anytime that they so choose. Shiny Hunters. Pokemon has essentially killed shiny hunting in the most recent releases of Pokemon games. Whether it was cutting the odds in half in Generation 6 or continuously giving us easier and easier methods to chain for shinies in each new release, shiny hunting has lost the meaning of what it was supposed to be. Shiny Pokemon used to be a myth that your cousin's friend who goes to a different school started when he caught a yellow Rattata. You ask him where he caught it, and you go to that same place in your game only to find plain purple Rattatas. It used to be special when you had a shiny, something unique to you. In Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, you can catch any shiny you want by eating a sandwich and setting up a picnic. It used to be special when you found a shiny, like you had a super Pokemon compared to everyone else, but now anyone can have them. And when everyone's super, no one will. Even when a new Pokemon game is released, people already have hacked Pokemon from their previous games that transfer up, immediately ruining the rarity of shinies in that game. The NSO games would fix this issue, as it wouldn't be possible to transfer Pokemon from other games, essentially creating a clean slate for all Pokemon fans. I could just imagine the rarity of a shiny Rayquaza on NSO. Truly something to tremble at if you encountered one while battling someone online. Challenge runners. The majority of challenge runners have already been playing these old games anyways, and typically they play on patched ROMs to either randomize the games or enforce their specific challenges. However, this would allow more people access to vanilla challenge runs such as Nuzlocke, not barring any casual players who want to try out these challenge runs from needing to buy a nice computer and emulate the games themselves. Speedrunners. The games on NSO would be huge for the speedrunning community. Currently, the barrier for entry to speedrun these games and capture your gameplay is pretty ridiculous. Your options are either mod an original DS or DS Lite that allow GBA games, or to use the Game Boy Player on the GameCube. The GameCube is the more accessible way, but purchasing a used GameCube today is going to cost around $200. The Game Boy Player itself will cost around $50, and the Game Boy Player disc will cost around a ridiculous $150 to $200. And this is before you even purchase the physical cartridge that costs hundreds of dollars as well. To play in a more authentic handheld system, buying a used DS today will cost around $150 to $200 if you find one in a good condition. That is the easy part. The hard part is scouring the internet for someone with the knowledge and ability to add a capture card into your system. Not to mention that you'll have to ship your DS to them to allow the mod to be installed. I have found some services that will do this for around $100, but they're currently sold out, and others that are currently on the market are closer to $500, so good luck. NSO would save this headache. Lastly, the majority of us, casual gamers. Casual gamers could honestly go either way on this one. I would argue that from a casual gaming experience, any of these old games blow Scarlet and Violet out of the water, as long as you can look past the obvious, the graphics aren't as good. All of these games run smoother than Scarlet and Violet, and with NSO's online capabilities, you will be able to play these games with your friends just like you can in Scarlet and Violet. As someone who has played every Pokemon game, I would much rather hop online with my friends in Pokemon Emerald than I would in Scarlet and Violet. If I was in a Discord call with a friend, and we were shiny hunting in Scarlet and Violet, and my friend says, "Found a shiny," the most emotion that could be drawn out of me is a simple, "Nice." But if we were doing the same thing on Pokemon Emerald, and they found a shiny, I would lose my freaking mind. All of these gamer types would flourish on these old games. I believe it would lead into another big boom of a Pokemon craze, with new gamers and old gamers alike all coming together to enjoy these games again in 2024, just like they were enjoyed when they first came out. However, it would in fact pull all of the gamer types from Scarlet and Violet, leaving Scarlet and Violet as a barren wasteland. I mean, it kinda already is though, but Nintendo doesn't want it to be. Nintendo wants their current games to flourish, not their work from the past. They do want us to enjoy what they have done in the past, but not in this way. Nintendo has made it abundantly clear how they want us to enjoy their old Pokemon. Excuse me, Nintendo? I love Pokemon Diamond, Pearl, and Platinum. May I please purchase it on my Wii U or 3DS so I can enjoy it with all my friends today? No, we have Diamond and Pearl at home. Remember, I gave you Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl. I'm closing the eShop, so don't ask questions like that again. But Nintendo, what about Platinum? Maybe in the future we can give you Platinum in a Let's Go format. Run along now. Nintendo doesn't want us to enjoy their old games in their old format. Nintendo wants to remake these games and resell them on their current system so that all of us wonderful people have to fork over $60 more at a game that we already had purchased in the past. Not to mention that these games aren't even as good as their original releases. So, unfortunately, no. I don't think that the Pokemon games will make it to NSO because Nintendo wants their gamers in their current games. They don't want to compete with themselves 20 years ago. Unfortunately, because they know that they would lose. If the competitive metagame was able to be played online via NSO on a Pokemon game like Pokemon Emerald, could Nintendo ever actually claim it back and get those gamers to come back to their next release when that comes out? That's the real question. That's their real fear. If Shinies got their charm back through actual trophy Shinies being able to be hunted for in Emerald, could Shinies ever be looked at the same way in the next release title? Nintendo has certainly won console wars before, but one competitor that they do not want to see is their self from 20 years ago. Frankly, because they know they cannot compete. So here we are, a company that would restrict its fans' access to games that they themselves own and would rather their fans either pay triple the price on secondhand markets or be forced to play their currently released half-baked games. This, my wonderful friends, is certainly one of the most interesting moments in gaming history. Before I go, I want to mention a correction from earlier in the video. Earlier I said that these old games didn't have online capability, and that is correct for now. There is actually a new online functionality that is being implemented for Pokemon Emerald only, called Pokemon Emerald Net Demo. This just might be the coolest thing I've ever seen in Pokemon or even gaming. The creator, Kitty P-Box, has used the Game Boy to GameCube cord to plug into a backwards compatible Wii to use the Wii's internet capabilities to connect to the internet on an actual Game Boy Advance system. I won't go too deep into this as Good Vibes Gaming has already created an amazing video on the subject that I will link in the description. But long story short, if Nintendo doesn't give us online old Pokemon, it just might be possible on official hardware in the near future anyways. Although, unfortunately, that would mean that you would need to pay these inflated prices to get a physical cartridge. While on the topic of correcting, I also wanted to shout out Fakely Namely, who left an amazing comment on our last video, Super Mario Advance 4, the e-reader levels. Fakely Namely said, I live in the US and had all the e-reader cards released for SMA 4. However, I was also able to find the scans of the Japanese exclusive cards online and print them out. It took a few attempts, but I was actually able to scan those cards in as well. The levels had glitchy text as the names, I'm assuming they were pulling from sprite sheets from removed Japanese characters, but the levels did function. I feel like I was the only person in the West to be able to experience those levels at that time. Brat Pack back now. First off, I want to say that is absolutely amazing that Fakely Namely was able to figure this out and that there was someone in America or anyone outside of Japan that was able to experience and complete those e-reader levels before their eventual release on the Wii U. Fakely Namely also stated later on, also the screen wrapping mechanic found in the e-reader levels is actually found in World 7 of vanilla Super Mario Bros. 3, and the coin snake block mechanic is in Super Mario World, so knowledge of previous games would help in that case. This was a complete oversight on my part while making that video, and it must just have been my first experience with those features in the e-reader levels, assuming that they were created during the e-reader levels themselves. Thank you so much, Fakely Namely. I want you guys to know if there are any other moments in gaming history that you want us to cover, please let us know by leaving a comment below. Thank you so much for watching this moment in gaming history.